Hello, welcome everyone. How do you hear?
I can hear you, Chris.
Okay, excellent. How are you guys doing?
Hey, Chris, you look better today.
Awesome. Hello.
I feel about a million times better. Yeah, I just think it was too much, pushing too much, not enough food and water. My body just kind of freaked out. Just 10 minutes, the last 10 minutes, I started sweating and then got sick. It
You've
was
been
great.
doing a lot of traveling, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting back home. And
How'd you like the launch?
it was amazing. It was
Oh my God,
unbelievable.
it's just unreal. I've watched it maybe 50 times.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, and just seeing the photos that Musk put out, the photos from space, that was interesting to me because I've seen a lot of aviation. I've been to a lot of air shows. I've seen a lot of demos from all the amazing fighters, the F-22 demo and everything. But I haven't seen anything outside of the atmosphere. So because it left, it was up at how many kilometers? I think 60.
148 kilometers.
Okay, because especially when the booster exploded, because it was definitely in space, and I'm just not used to any sort of explosion like that. It was just a perfect round explosion. It was like poof.
Yeah, at 70 kilometers when it exploded, there's not much atmospheric pressure to contain it. So it just goes
Yeah.
in the sphere.
Oh, excellent. Is that the photo? What's behind you? You got
Oh,
something.
those are two cryptids that Lala Bride and I observed while we were sitting in our truck in a field near our home.
Cool.
These glowing ribbons just flew through the air right over us. And a few minutes later, a big 40-foot orb appeared over our truck, illuminated the ground. I'll send you these pictures, Chris. I'll send them to you.
Yeah, excellent. And it was really, the explosion was amazing, with no atmosphere on it. It was just a perfect, like,
Yeah.
and just sat there. It looked like a firework, but much faster and larger. Yeah, it was quite cool. And then it looked like a star. The engine looked like a star in the shape of a triangle. So it looked like a UAP. That's what I was saying when I was doing a live stream. I was like, it looks like a UAP. It just looks like a very super bright ball. When people say it's so bright, you can't really look at it. It looks like a sun. But this was, even when you look at it, kind of hurts your eyes a little bit. It's almost like looking at a little mini sun.
It's the perfect example of black body radiation. You know the temperature, so you know what the color is going to be. It's awesome. I love it.
That was amazing. And the plasma, it was 1,000-foot plasma tail on it. And you could see the harmonics in the fire.
Yeah, the
It was
mock
like
diamonds.
harmonizing.
The mock diamonds, yeah.
Is that why you hear it? Like when it's popping, it's like pop, pop, pop,
Yep.
pop, pop, pop.
Yep.
That's
You
from
know,
those
the
mock
wave,
diamonds.
exactly. The wave goes past you as minima and maximum. And you hear pop, 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 pop as those air pressure bubbles go past you.
And that's from all the
Mock
harmonics.
diamonds. Mock diamonds, yeah. I
Mock
mean, you have
diamonds,
mock
okay.
diamonds when you went into Afterburner, you had mock diamonds.
It did make a funny shape, but it didn't look quite like that. We just had one diamond, I think. I don't remember
one.
mock
That's
diamonds.
it. One.
Okay, that's it. So we get one. Why do they get so many? Just because there's so
Well,
many.
because the velocity of the stuff coming out of that thing is huge. Otherwise, it wouldn't have that tremendous thrust. Its specific impulse is ridiculous. It's the most powerful rocket motor on Earth right now.
That Raptor engine.
Yep.
Yeah, I calculated it's 20 F-16 engines, 20 of my engines in one of those.
And he had 33 of them, and they all ran perfectly.
That was amazing. Yeah, to see it all at the same. And the hot stage was really cool, seeing that the Starship light its engines while it was still attached to the booster.
Yep.
So that worked all well.
He is one gutsy guy. Of course, I couldn't help myself. I told him what he did wrong.
Yeah.
They turned on more engines and swooped around so fast, the fuel sloshed away from the nozzle and engines began failing. They probably had hammer. They probably blew up lines. If they just kept the three going and moved around slowly and then lit the rest, they'd be all right.
I see. Well, they'll figure it out. I think it was.
They will. They're great engineers. They're great engineers. Did you see how quickly they fixed the pad and solved that problem?
Yeah.
It was amazing.
All the space nerds down there I mean, because they're going to go on Mars. They're first on the list. All these guys we hung out with. It was mostly dudes. It was mostly dudes. But they were all excited, and most excited about how they swapped out the motor for the fins. There was that they had everything ready to go. They even attached the explosives. The flight termination system is an explosive. It's a big C4. It's like this big, and we got photos of the people walking out with these C4s strapped to their back, like a foot long C4.
I don't mean to interrupt, but you and I can geek out on this rocket anytime. These people are here for something else.
Yeah. We'll finish. And we'll end it there anyway.
Yeah.
But it was with the space nerds, and I asked a bunch of them, did you see any UAPs? And they all said, no, they hadn't seen any. And they have a lot of videos up. But to be honest, because I was in Norway just less than 10 days ago, I guess, two or 2 weeks ago. And with the UAP nerds, they're always looking at the sky, like the whole time is looking up, like the whole time. And I even got asked by one of the space nerds, I was looking up the whole time, and the sky was amazing. At night, you could really see the stars, very little light pollution. It was so clear. It was a beautiful night. We saw the ISS come over really clearly, a bunch of Starlink satellites, no UAPs. One guy stopped me and he's like, what, are you okay? Because I was walking around staring up, and hanging out with the UAP people. I say nerds is a compliment. The UAP experts up in Norway and Heston, they would never ask why you looking up, because they're also looking up, so it's just a difference. The space people still centered on their phone, they're watching it on the TV, and the UAP people are looking outside. That was one big difference I noted.
All right, you opened the subject. Tell us about the hunt for the ghost rocket.
The hunt for the ghost rocket. Okay, yeah, so I post everything online, as much as I can. I have gotten a couple other photos from the sonar where they start mapping it with no explanation. He's Runa, basically he was also filming a documentary, and he's paid. The camera they were using alone is $100,000 camera that they were using to film this documentary. So he really just let me come along because he's a fan and wanted to get more publicity, but I don't also want to ruin his whole documentary. So they are keeping like the final things close until they can reveal them when it makes sense, right? If I just reveal it, I'm not, I just came there. It doesn't really do their project justice, So, but what I have gotten is a couple photos, and it looks like a long cylinder on the bottom of, at the bottom of an ocean. So I can't tell if to me, it could be just underneath. I'm not an expert at that. It doesn't look like it's tic tac. I don't know. It could be just a metal, something that's returning the sonar under the mud that the rover just didn't see. But what's interesting is when they went back with the second boat, they also didn't pick it up on sonar. So, and these are small little science boats. People ask why didn't they have two out there at the same time? And I think it's just two dudes there. It's a lot of equipment, and it is the Arctic, right? If it was freezing over at night, so I think they just didn't want to have that much equipment in the sea at the same time. But the second boat didn't hit the sonar. So what I could see, they also sent me an image, and this, they just put a V2 rocket next to it, and it looked like the same size and basic shape, from some angle. I don't know if that means it's a V2 rocket or they suspect it's a V2 rocket. He didn't want me to share it because he doesn't know, it was just them messing around. Like, what could it be?
Did they have a magnetometer?
Not down on the rover. They had a side scan sonar and they had multi-beam sonar. So they had two. So there was that whole boat. It's a funny looking like yellow boat. And that thing is that's your advanced multi-beam sonar. They sonar down at the Baltic Sea, and I think it's like 1,500 feet. So what I was thinking is maybe it's too shallow, but I mean, the guys, they've been doing it for decades. These guys, Subsea Nordic, and they're like one of the go-to firms in Norway, and they've done all the Baltic Sea. They were racing off. The guy just got back from the Black Sea. He was running one of like the multi-million-dollar rovers and detonating mines. They detonated that. He talked to me about Nord Stream, and because he's done it a bunch. They find mines under the Baltic Sea, of course. And so they drive a little rover up to it, and he said they attach a little piece of C4, and then they blow it from the surface. And so on his recent trip, they did 46 of those mine excavations, just blowing stuff up. He said the Nord Stream would be easy to do, and he actually their group Nordic Subsea he said he had gone to the Nord Stream, and he was part of the Norwegian investigation to go there. And so he's like, yeah, it's in 70 feet of clear water, super easy. And he looked at it. There was some talk of it being a pig. A pig is a thing they send down the tanks to like clean it out. So you can send that down. Like they were saying, the Russians did it, and they sent this pig down and then blew it up. So you could send this down the pipeline like a bomb that just goes with the flow, and then you blow it up. So that's what they were saying. How the Russians did it. But he said no, it was obviously imploded. It was very obviously like an external explosion put to it. So those guys, we'll have to see what they come up with. The problem is that, Rune's friends with these guys, and he just paid for the equipment use. And these guys basically did it, as they're interested as a favor, but they have like actual hundreds of $1,000 jobs going on. And, so they were in line. Last I heard, we're in line, and he's sending me these teaser photos once in a while. And I ask, can I share it? And he's like, no. So I'm like, okay, I don't want to see any more teaser photos, till you know what it is. So I think we'll know, hopefully soon they'll figure out what it is, and he'll be able to officially release it. He's a photographer, he's artistic. A lot of and I think you'll see people hold the information a lot longer. I don't admit it to be to a flaw. Actually, Ross Coulthard, I released some information and surprised Ross Coulthard, and he hasn't returned any of my texts. So I don't know. I tend to just publish stuff immediately.
Sorry, I'm a little behind the 8 ball on this one. Could you backfill a little bit on this? What exactly is the ghost rocket?
Yeah, definitely. I was just trying to find some pictures of it, but I can't share. Yep. If you can actually go to my channel. I covered it 10 days ago. So Michael Herrera, Starship this week. I covered Michael Herrera last week, which I've talked to that already. The previous week I was in Norway. I flew up to Norway to the Hessdalen area, and it's this guy. If you can see, there he is. Okay, so he's a character. That's his Bad Wolf photography. Is his
dog man.
He's Wolf Man, and he is. He is a high level black metal guitarist. Black metal is the top cultural export of Norway. It has a lot of violins and like hymning and metal guitar. It's a very interesting genre. I actually enjoyed it when we were listening. But he's also a UAP enthusiast, as many of these people are on the side, right? It's very difficult to make a living from UAPs, yeah, and I have 100,000 subscribers, but I make like $3,000 a month, from all that. So I'm not killing the bank, but it pays for all my endeavors. It paid for me to go to Norway, pays for my fees, etc. So yeah, so that's the lake behind us. And what I can show you, in 1947, basically 3 witnesses, and this guy Bernard Soley, he ended up being the mayor of that whole area. So he's a well-respected man in the local area, Hessdalen. It's near Hessdalen. It's about a 30-minute drive from Hessdalen. We had these boats, actually. That's one of the boats. That's the Nordic Subsea team I was just talking about. Can you guys see that okay? So that boat right there has a rover on it. You'll see that cable is actually a rover, that yellow cable in the back. And that has, hundreds of meters of cable, and they put that down, they get video of the surface. And the other boat is a multi-beam radar. I keep saying radar because they say radar, but it's a sonar. So the other boat is a multi-beam sonar right there. And so the multi-beam sonar, that's going to give you a high definition image of the bottom of that lake. And so the first one they sent out, that multi-beam sonar they sent out, it imaged a 22-meter long by 3-meter object at the bottom. But then when they sent down the second boat, they did not see anything at that location. And what's interesting is they went to a rock that they'd already rovered and sonared. They went to another rock they'd already rovered or sonared and then rovered. They went to the final location, dropped down, and it was empty. So there was nothing there.
Just I want to add that Ghost Rockets has a multi-page thing on Wikipedia.
Yeah, the Ghost Rocket itself, and I didn't learn about it, and that's why I kind of like sharing it. Not that I'm a huge expert in ufology or anything. You know, Steve Bassett and Richard Dolan know much more, obviously decades. But I still hadn't heard of the Ghost Rocket at all. And when I Googled it and looked on YouTube, there's no real mention of ghost rockets. None of the other YouTubers are talking about it. It seems like kind of outside the US venue. And since I lived there, I could just fly up, you know, in a reasonable, it still took a full day to get there, but it was reasonable. And so I like sharing that information. I do have 2 more videos actually still on deck that I did. And I'd released so many videos already about Heston. I wanted to break it up and delay it. But that project is really exploding now. There's a lot of momentum there. There's knowledgeable, smart people that have good paying jobs, good paying regular jobs that are interested. And so they're going up to Heston. And Ghost Rockets is a separate issue, not related to Heston. It was basically right at 1947. They had over 2,000 accounts, most of them in Sweden, but also in Norway and Finland, of these objects flying in. And originally they thought they were V2 rockets. So so during the war, they thought it was V2 rockets, and they couldn't just ask the Germans, are you shooting rockets at us? So they assumed it was rockets. But the thing is, they never found anything. So they never found any V2 rocket debris. And for some reason, these objects they'd have weird witnesses. So they would change speed, they'd make noise, and a lot of them would land in the lakes.
And sorry, 1947? The war was over in 45. Why would the Germans be firing rockets at them?
Through that time, I guess, in the 40s.
Oh, okay.
1947. That 1947 is when this particular ghost rocket story happened.
Chris,
the one that went into the lake. Oh, hey, what's up?
Hey, man, how's it going?
Hey.
What you're saying is reminding me a lot of the UAP that were detected in Ukraine. You know, Avi Loeb said, "Oh, they're rockets," but you know, there's a crossover here. They could be a similar kind of thing. What do you think? I know you followed up with that and did a whole bunch of videos, like some really good analysis. So I just wanted to throw that into the ring.
Yeah, what's interesting about the ghost rocket accounts is how many of them there were, and then it seems to involve lakes a lot, and they seem like it's a lot of physical effects, you know, because what you get with the Heston lights is more visual effects with a lot of lights. And they have a great website actually that goes through. I interviewed Erling Strand, and he spent many years. Every morning he wakes up and would check the blue box detector and post these videos. So there's many videos, there's many photos, many witness accounts going back many years. Because initially at Heston, they were made fun of actually. When they first came out, there was news reports immediately calling them like country Bill Bumpkins. They said they drank moonshine. We actually did drink moonshine when I was there. I don't drink, but they drank moonshine. So they do have moonshine, I guess. But they were made fun of mainly by the town right next door, which is just, again, you know, coming from the outside, they look very similar, you know, like that farm's a little in the valley over, but they were made fun of by the larger, called them like the bumpkins, and it was in the news. So then the reports they died way down for, I think, 15 or 20 years. And that's when Erling Strand went up there and he started relaying this. And then it came out that they were actually seeing it and they were getting valid detections. They have the videos, all the photos, so many witness accounts, and it changed. And so now the Heston people, you know, they seem like they've been validated, you know, that now it's come back. There's only 100 people that live in Heston, so it's not a huge community or anything, but they do seem validated, and so they're motivated. They're motivated to go out there, and you can't even get there unless by snow machine to many of the areas. It's only accessible by snow machine, so it's really isolated area. Yeah, so that's basically the update on the ghost rockets. I hope to hear from them again, and they're motivated for sure. They have it called Project Hessdalen, and they're looking for members. They have a lot of people come and join, and that's the issue with a lot of these volunteer organizations. Is it's great, we have smart people, and it's awesome to come, but what can you really contribute? A lot of it is welcoming people, which is fun. It is great. It's fun to have people there. Like our Discord is a great place for that, for being there, hanging out, welcoming. But like their Discord is more like a action oriented. They really need a smaller team, I think, that's really focused. People that are there all the time, spinning up people that just show up for a little bit and don't really have the time or energy to kind of see a project to the end. It's not necessarily what they're looking for, but if people are motivated and really want to get involved, but consistently, then I would say that's their place. But people just to hang out and have a good time is more like the main floor of our Discord. I would say it's more area like that. But I'm working with Project Hessdalen, and I know those guys are focused and working on this stuff scientifically. He like added 4 cameras, in the week before I got there. Magnus, he's the tech lead director. He put up 4 thermal cameras, and if you look where he put them up, it's like it's way out in the middle of nowhere. It's like 3 feet of snow, Arctic conditions, but he's like, yeah, I love it. It's out there. And so they have people that will go out every week and check the cameras, the SD cards. So I like it. It's exciting that there's real world investigation going on. I think that's critical, and mainly because as we've seen more and more that the government is not going to tell us the truth. They either make sure that you can't ask the people that know the right questions, or they just lie. It seems like that's the best method. So I don't know. We'll see. I know Ross Coulthard, he has something coming out on JFK assassination. I'm really interested in that. I think it's directly related. I wouldn't be surprised if it's the same organization. If he found out and got wind of this, he was pulling troops out of Vietnam, if you think about it. And if he knew about the UAP program and was talking about releasing it to beat the Russians, maybe. Yeah, I think they easily would have killed him,
Well,
it could have been the final
comment that JFK was killed. It was like an Agatha Christie whodunit movie where everybody killed him is probably was a comical but incredibly true statement. If you studied the subject, it's just about everybody had a hand in it. CIA, FBI, Department of Defense. It just goes on and on.
And unfortunately, that's what Michael Herrera said in the interview. I mean, it's kind of a terrifying interview, but I guess it would highlight, if it's true, is this organization would have broad reach and may not know why it's involved in this, or may not even, you don't want the people to know. You want it compartmentalized. But like if you need someone killed, you just put them on the terrorist kill list. It's not like you don't need that much involvement. You just need someone in one organization to say, hey, this person is a threat to our system and they're on this list. That I don't think you don't need to tell them more information than that. You don't need to say why they're on the list. When I was in the Air Force, I coordinated, I was in Iraq just for 6 months, and I did a 2-week assignment to the KAOC. It's the Joint Air Operations Center. It's in Doha, which is just an amazing city in itself, just for 2 weeks. And, it just comes out on the list. You're going to hit these targets with these assets. You're just filling numbers. This special forces unit, I'm going to make sure it has this, this tanking. It has this support from the Predators. It has this support from F-18s, F-16s. Okay, together, here's your target. They don't know. They're just going in like, here's what they look like, So using the assets using the machine already in place, if you fully understand how the machine works and you built it And if that was written into the source code back in the 40s, it seems like you just have levers in each of these organizations. You don't need full-fledged members of your organization. You just need control over it. Yeah. So we got to that. What questions do we have from the audience?
Chris, can you hear me?
Yeah. How's it going?
Awesome. Great, man. It's awesome to talk to you. I'm a big fan. I've watched your show. I found it really refreshing. I've been into the subject for a long time, but it's been really interesting to watch you coming into this. I really love the way you break down sort of current events, things that are happening, because watching these stuff as they happen, I think it's really easy to miss the significance, and you're always really good about kind of drilling in to what the significance is of this piece of news that comes out as it comes out. And I really appreciate that. So I wanted to tell you that, first of all.
Awesome.
But your recent show on Hezbollah, I thought was interesting. The ghost rocket stuff, I had no idea about that story. So that was interesting. But I did know about the history of Hezbollah and the Valley of the Lights there. And you talked with some people about that. You were just talking about the observations and new cameras and stuff. But I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what you learned from being there, maybe people you talked to who had seen these lights. I'm assuming you didn't see anything while you were there, but maybe you talked to other people about these kind of plasma vortices that pop in and out all the time in that valley, and if you learned anything about that.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like everyone up there has a story, or several stories. What was interesting is there are a few humanoid accounts, and I didn't cover them in the lights. I'll cover the lights and then just a little bit on humanoids because I didn't just mention it. Yeah, the Heston lights, like I said, they've covered it a lot. And really, you just look, if you go to that website, projectheston.org, he has a really good explanation of the 4 types of lights that they're seeing. And they really see, and he has photos of each one. It's good. It's an old website, right? It looks old and crappy, but the information is really good. And actually, they're projectheston.org. Yep, projectheston.org. And they are doing a new one. They're redoing it right now. But there's a link to the new one right at the bottom. There's a link to the old one right at the bottom of the new one. And it explains the 4 lights. And it's in one of my videos. But basically, the most common is a flash. They just see like a white flash, and that's it. And maybe there's multiple, but a lot of times they'll just see a white flash, and everyone is just, what is that? They don't know what it is. They have astronomers on the team. It's not a space object. And they have them before there were drones. So they have these photos and videos from back, starting, I think, in 1998 is when they started it. So that's the most common, is this white flash. And you see it out of the peripheral of your vision easier, is what they say. So yeah, they'll be like, was that a flash? Again, everybody's always looking up. And then the other types are less common. But then you have ones where it'll be just a white or yellow ball, and it'll just float there, and then it will move, right? And these can be anywhere from like a meter. What I've heard is a meter up to like 15 or 20 feet. And they'll have and they'll change colors. And they've actually gotten good video of these with a spectrograph. They have a spectrometer on these things. And what they find is it's not like a plasma. And Magnus talks about that. Magnus, the lead tech director there, because a plasma, and again, I'm no plasma expert, but what he explained is you're going to get one spectral line. If it's burning green or something, you get the green line that corresponds with that frequency of light when it's burning, right? That's why it's green. We see it as that color. So plasmas have a certain line, a spectrograph right on it. But this one would be, the problem is what they're seeing is like a sun, where they see all the they get like a total spectrograph, instead of a single line.
Right.
That's super weird. So they'll see that, and then it'll go red. They say it'll go like red, bright red, and then often it'll just disappear. And they say it turns off, or it'll shoot up into space.
Huh.
That's a common one. The third one is like when you have 3 lights together. They've said they think you can see a shape in there. The guy believed he could see a shape, but then I don't know. Mick West has that good argument about your mind fills it. But that sounds like he said there was definitely a shape because it blocked out behind the mountainside. And there's a fourth type, which I can't remember. It's a variant of one of those. I think it's multiples. Yeah, so that's
awesome.
That's basically the main lights. And then what I was talking about at the beginning is I've heard two stories in the same place. One is the guy was driving back right into Hesteland, and they always point it out when we drove by it. They point out every place and give it a funny name in Norway. If you ever go there, they'll always describe a place with a name like Oingenjingen. Pass through Oingenjingen, look to your right, you'll see Hoikensikken. Anyway, we passed through one of those areas. I can't, and the names are so hard to remember anyway. And what this guy said, he had to stop the car because across the street was like two like gray looking aliens, and they were just walking, and they seemed surprised to see him, and then they walked up into the grass. And they weren't exactly gray. I'm trying to remember. I can't remember the description. He drew it. It was this really funny looking, terrible drawing. But I did include that in one of the videos. So there are a few humanoid accounts, and then also I heard some other amazing accounts where this lady's she's out in the middle of nowhere in this cabin, and her whole windows, the side of her house is filled with like a light, and she goes to look, and there's 150. They said 150 meter across ball there, some giant white ball shining into her light into her house. As well as crazy other yeah, there's so many stories there. There's hundreds of stories if you go up to that area. So and they don't seem crazy, the people you're talking, they seem like northern people. So yeah, that's what I
was
say.
The bar like out there?
The bar, yeah, it's like you saw, it was they're building up. There's a UFO lodge, so I want to send my daughter there maybe next summer. It's a science camp. You can go for like 2 weeks, and they go and hunt for UAPs. I've never heard of a place like that. And so they have, and the bar, it's a little nice little like converted. I don't know what it is. Yeah, it's cool.
It looked tiny. It looked absolutely tiny, but it looked cozy.
Yeah, it's cool. No, it'd be a great spot to go. I would love to go in the summer. Norway's so expensive, so staying in a hotel would be kind of cost prohibitive, at least for me. But I could go to one of these campsites, and in the summer it's beautiful there, and they have that UFO lodge, and so I could stay up there in the summer for a few. I mean, it's just like Alaska, beautiful area, and then go look for UAPs, etc. Although it won't be dark. But
it's super cold when you were out there.
It was freezing. Yeah, it was minus 20.
Oh my god,
Fahrenheit, I think. Yeah, I couldn't even do the conversion. Oh, daylight objects. Here we go from Matthew. Type 4 is daylight objects. Okay, cool. Yeah, it was something like that. Yeah, they do see objects. And his wife, Jan Moen, he's the famous guy there that does he's an old farmer, lived there for over 50 years. His wife was driving on the road there, and next to her while she's driving, she saw a physical object, looked like a Volkswagen Beetle shape, which reminds me of a ghost rocket, all the drawings we've seen. And she said it just floated along next to her while she's driving. And that a lot of these events, none of them say it's like really enjoyable, especially the close encounters. They don't seem really happy about it or excited, like it was a positive experience. Another guy, he was in a snowstorm, and there was just this really bright light that was right behind. He thought it was another vehicle that was like just riding him, and so he like pulled over, and it wasn't a vehicle, and it just like kept following him in a blizzard. So you hear crazy stories like that. Oh, there it is. Okay, so Daniel Zetterstrom Z's saying Heston are organizing a field trip next September. If you'd like to go, register your interest here. That's what, yeah, Rune and them, awesome. I think it was they already had it full, but they're organizing another one if people really enjoy it. I would recommend it. I mean, they're super motivated. Yeah, the facilities are nice, actually. The UFO lodge is there. They have the bar. There's not much else in the area, but
was the outside like little nook that you guys were in with the fire, was that like part of the bar, or was that like someone's house that you were staying at?
That was somebody's house. That was his cabin that we were using. Frank, that was Frank's cabin. They built that area. It's nice, the fire area. They call it the Black Lodge. So that's like the special forces investigation group, or they just go to the Black Lodge.
The Twin Peaks reference, or
It must be. I don't know. I don't know actually. I think it is. It could be.
Has to be.
I never watched it, but cool, man. Yeah. Let's. Clifford, you got a question? What's your question?
Yeah. So are you familiar with any of the Tom DeLonge Secret Machine books? Kind of the fact is fiction kind of stuff.
I didn't read it. Yeah, I haven't read the books, but I'm
asking because there's this narrative that keeps showing up in those books, and now in this guy that you interviewed, Herrera. And you'll have to forgive me. I wasn't too aware of your site, although I subscribe to it on YouTube now.
Okay, cool.
And I keep seeing this, and every time I see a pattern, it repeated over a period of time, it definitely piques my interest. And I keep hearing this meme coming up of, think that there's this there's like a secret space force. There's this ongoing battle between one group that's associated with the government and possibly in cooperation with the aliens, and there's another group that's sort of this rogue, perhaps industrial group, et cetera, and this thing keeps popping up, and I'd just be curious to know what you think or know about that.
A secret space force, I guess. Is that the?
No, specifically, really, there's this meme that keeps coming up that there's this ongoing. Well, and yes, it includes the secret space force, but that there's some kind of internecine war going on between an Earth-based group that's got reverse engineer technology and another group that may involve a mix of people, Earth-based people plus in cooperation with some alien entities.
Yeah, I haven't. The only thing I've heard of is Michael Herrera, really, and that would be humans with special abilities, if you will, using alien technology. But if his story is true, then what it means is that there's alien technologies accessible right now to people in our government, meaning we can access new alien technology. That would mean that we have there is a touch point, right? There's some surface area between our world and our civilization and some other civilizations, right? Or at least if that's the case, then that leads to a much larger game, which is what it sounds, and it even feels like. I don't know. My whole theory is about it's systems levels. Your information can travel across different substrates. If you think about it, a song, right? If you think of a song, someone can sing a song, they can play a song on a record, or they can play a song on a computer. And every one of those mediums that, whatever the substrate is different in each one of those mediums that are generating it. I guess it's creating the same sound through the air. But the point is that you can have different substrates to carry the information. So that's why I see similar patterns, when you're in a system. So what I would say, it's probably, if you look at the rest of the natural world, it's part of a larger hierarchy, is what I would guess. That's my speculation. Just on my theory, we look down, we see numbers that we can't possibly believe. 37 trillion cells is the last number inside your body. And then anytime we look up with a telescope, we just can't believe it. Just yesterday, I had great access to this $3,000 telescope. And, you point it, it's this giant machine, and you point it, and we could barely see Saturn, barely. And we could barely see the Orion Nebula. It's kind of shaking. And those things are so close, if you think about it in the grand scheme of things. So the numbers looking up are just insane. And when we say that humans are the top of the food chain, we're just saying that out of all of that existence, we're the number one being. And it stops here, right? And everything's for us. And we even talk about that, like the nations are for us, but really it comes down to what can you do for your nation, right? Not what can your nation do for you. And so I think it's systems related. And I would say, if it's true, and it is instilled throughout the whole government, then there's likely another layer out there. I remember, and maybe it's kind of chilling, I guess, but there was one abduction case, and I believe I interviewed, when was it? I can't remember if he was Australian. Yeah, sorry, I can't remember exactly which one, but he's basically out camping, and he gets abducted with his friend. And what he he goes back for hypnosis, right? And so at the time, what he remembers is these basically automaton grays come down in their campsite. They stay in their tent. The grays, the automaton, he said more like automatons. They walked around and messed around, shine lights, and so he didn't know what they were doing. And then they left, right? That's what he remembered. He goes back to get a hypnosis, and that's not actually what happened, because there was a 4-hour time gap. That's why he went and got the hypnosis. So under this hypnosis, he goes up, and I'm sorry, I didn't do the interview. I watched this. But he's on a giant ship, right? He's on a giant ship. He can't move, and he's kind of encased in where he's frozen, kind of similar to the same story Mario Wood said. And he's on this ship, and his friend goes in. He can hear his friend like screaming, from another room of this giant hangar. And there's a different alien species that's standing next to him. He said more like reptiloid. And this also matches with what Mario Wood said. Because Mario Wood said, there was 3 grays in front that abducted him, and then there was a larger gray-looking, but he says reptilian of kind of all of them, maybe the skin, or they're wearing suits. So one of these is there, and it did not look at this guy reasonably. So all that is, a normal alien story, and I'm like, okay, this is an abduction story, obviously crazy, obscene. But what he says is, this is what blew me away. On this giant ship, he looks across, and there are humans, right, in U.S. Air Force uniforms, so in flight suits. He said there was a group of humans, like in American gear, basically walking around and just like BSing, like it's just normal operations, And I don't know, it's just a crazy fact to throw in there, why that would be in there.
Well, here's a weird story. Yeah. Which you'll find interesting as a fighter pilot. It's in one of the RD6 killer books. I don't know if you've ever read any of them, but I would highly recommend some of those, particularly the ones that pertain to Native American sightings within the United States. Anyway, there's one account of a Native American who was a U.S. Air Force pilot, and he's on break. He's driving on the back roads towards the reservation, some deserted road. He comes up on a UFO that's blocking his road. They shut his car down. They stop him. They make him get out. They abduct him. They take him on the ship, and they tell him, and he's like, why are you doing this, and what do you want? And they're like, well, we need your information because you're a pilot, and we need to understand how to repair a human craft and various other things associated with the human craft, and we want your information. And he was basically like, fuck you, I'm not telling you that. That's national security. And they're like, well, you don't have any right to refuse us. And he says, yes, I do. And they said, well, we're going to take it anyway by basically brain scanning you. And this is like one of the many of these types of accounts in there. They take him, do something to extract his memories, but on the way there, he sees a huge hangar, because he's underground, full of planes and aircraft of every type from every period that they have, sort of might be one of the explanations for why planes go missing. And they basically tell him that they are taking all these planes because they think it would be a good way to observe humanity. And they need he needs his understanding to help repair them and maintain them and manufacture and, basically use them, because they're going to use them to observe humanity. So I'm mentioning that in the context of, how do we know if they were really humans or just entities that look like humans disguised to be human, to look like humans? That's all I'm going to say.
It could be all of us, though. We could all be entities disguised as humans. So that is interesting. That brings up one thought. I was just trying to look up his name. I just I finally finished on the way here. I got time to finish Non-Human. That was by Gary Hesseltine, and he just released that book. It's a 5-year investigative book into Rendlesham. So we went back and looked into Rendlesham Forest incident, and he found a bunch of new witness testimony. Actually, pretty interesting. And another night, just he added to the huge amount of information on that case, and I think it's it's again involving U.S. Air Force, U.S. nuclear weapons. And there's one interesting thing, just going back to your question on this, is there was one point, and it's just in the witness testimony. It's just by one new security forces guy, David Aubritz. I was going to look up his name. He was one of the new witnesses in the RFI case. He's I believe he's nuclear security forces. So what he said is the commander of the base, and this is all disputed, right? The commander and Colonel Holt. The big case, if you don't know Rendlesham Forest, and I didn't know it as well, but it's a very complex case that appears to have happened over 4 nights, which means by the 3rd night they'd be ready, and they were prepared. And so they had cameras out there filming, they had photographers, they had people testing with radiation. And there's this alleged event, right, by several witnesses, that this ship landed there. It floated down as a ball of light, right, and then just expanded into this large ship. And out of this ship, maybe 40 feet across, this is Capel Green, the Capel Green area landing. And out of this large ship, which was there, it sounds like many hours. Right. So they're surrounding it. They're videoing it. The commander is there. And so according to this new witness, the commander of the base, Colonel Williams, goes up and talks to these entities. Right. And the new witness hears them. And what he hears, and this is what's interesting, is the colonel says, OK, we can get you that part. Right. We'll need to contact electronics division. They said, we may need to contact electronics division, but we'll see about getting you that part. And again, that was just such a random thing that was in the testimony. And that came from the new witness. So I want to ask Michael Herrera, and further on, is there an electronics division? But maybe I give away too much information, now that they can plant it. But interesting. That would allude to an integrated Space Force kind of operation where we have agreements, off-world agreements, and maybe even have some sort of exchange programs. Yeah, which again, I allude back in the 1500s when countries found the New World and they found America. Did they let their citizens know? What's the chance they told their citizens any of the truth about where it is, where they were getting the gold, what they were doing there? I'm highly doubtful that they told anything. The maps were super secret. Yeah, how many people did they tell they knew the world was round? I bet most of the citizens still thought the world was round after they were going, monthly to the New World. So if you look back in history, it's nothing. Would be nothing new. But cool. Do we have any? I saw alien girls here. It's interesting. Hello.
Yes, so excited to see you. This is amazing.
Awesome. That's cool. You have a green, nice microphone. I need a new one.
Thank you. I have a little logo sticker too. I feel so official.
It's cool. Excellent. What are you looking into? What have you found most interesting about the conference or this week?
I really liked what I heard Richard saying earlier about having a venue where people can openly talk about things, because that's something you can't do on YouTube. So I've just been interested in hearing what people have been excited to talk about without feeling like YouTube's going to shut it down. Because there's something, and it's not just YouTube, it's all sorts of different media that don't want these conversations to happen. They're very vulnerable conversations. They're not things that people want to actively share. And there's also just honestly thoughts and ideas and just like thinking about things or having questions that get shut down. Like you're not supposed to ask this question, right? And so to see some of like my favorite ufologists, including yourself and Signal and the Raji Report and all these Mind Forked and all of these amazing people with, you know, Stephen Bassett. And it's fascinating because there's some stuff I could go on and on, Chris. This is why I talk on my show nonstop, but I'm just really excited to be here, hear what you got to say. And I think my question for you that I have is you just seem like a very creative individual who knows what you're trying to look for, who knows what you're trying to focus in on. And like what I love is you like went on an adventure. Heck yeah. Right. And not everybody is that way in ufology. They're not like, I'm gonna go on an adventure. Right. And so from that, like, what do you think? Where's the most exciting place that like doing ufology has led you? Like, I mean, you've hit it all because you were there the 26th.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah,
This
you
year,
were there at all sorts of things.
yes, yeah. That this year was amazing. Yeah, I will be honest. I'm looking forward to getting home tomorrow and sleeping. Well, 2 days now. It's a day of travel. But yeah, amazing times actually. Yeah, let's see. I went to first was the hearing. That's where that was yeah, amazing as well. I met Stephen Bassett. Asked him. He said he'd be on my show. That's when I met him first time. I didn't meet Rich, but I met several other people there at the hearing. That yeah, I wish it's tough with jet lag. You know, it is tough because it doesn't necessarily pay like the traveling. Like if you looked at the numbers I made from those travel videos, um, they're not going to pay the bills. You know, staying at home. Like if you look at other numbers that people do, they can just make a video just at home. You know, and they can make a video that gets more views than those do because it's on the road. My goal is to bring people on the investigation. That's my style. I guess the only way I know how to do it. And so I think people who enjoy or interested on going on those investigations or would be interested in being in that environment, I think watch those shows and I really like it. But the mainstream, I say, probably isn't that interested. You know, they want to just be told the highlights. You know, everybody, it's quick. They gotta give them all the information. So it doesn't get as many views, to be honest. It's but it pays, but it's enough to make it worth my time, you know, to make it pay. I'm not paying out of pocket to go, hopefully. Hopefully the views will come up and it should pay for themselves. But the UAP, so the point is I don't have I'm not there a lot of time. So it's tough to get in there, get the content while you're jet lagged and then make a quality video. So that's all to say, I wish I did a better job getting better interviews after the hearing. You know, looking back, I'm like, everybody was right there. You know, I should just grabbed them all and pulled them over the side and been like, no, you know, David Grush, you're going to talk to me, you know, you're going to do an interview. I could have done, I'm sure, interviews on the spot, you know, but it's just the best I can do. You know, that's all I try and do. And it's getting slowly better. I wish I was more organized. But like you'll see, the sound was much better in Norway. I kind of finally figured that out through just trial and error. But it's been so different. You know, the UAP hearing was great to connect with old friends. I got to stay with my old fighter pilot buddy, and he's just a genius. You know, I'd love to get him involved, try and get him involved on the technical side. So it was really nice, the UAP hearing, to meet up with old friends, meet people in person.